right.
Yeah.
What is the sound of one child crying?
Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our memorial service, remembrance, and time of appreciation for Tomoe Katagiri. So I'll say a little bit about what's coming. We'll begin. What's coming is some electronic augmentation. Is that working? Is that helping?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should work. Okay.
Switch is on the top.
Helping any? Maybe? Okay. So we will have a memorial service for Tomoe-san, chanting, well, Shokin, Wanko. Really, it's not that bad. Shokin, Wanko, Roshi will be the Doshi.
I'm sorry, sir, but the microphone is not on. Switch is on the top of it.
Oh. How long now? Is that working? Is that working? Is that helping any? No. Okay, that's. Let me check back here.
Now you've got it.
Okay. This is where Luddites came from. Okay, so.
Of course.
Could be, we'll fix it. Okay. So Shokin Roshi will be the officiant, the doshi for our memorial service. We will chant the Heart Sutra and the Daihi Shindarani. Because of our space setup here, the doshi will do full prostrations. The rest of us are invited to do deep standing bows along with him. When he has completed you might call it the ceremony proper, he will come over here and make his remarks to us, to the assembly. And then, one by one, several other people are scheduled and will be giving their remarks, starting with Andrea Martin, who will talk about the life of Tomoe Katagiri, Yasuhiko Katagiri, the elder son of Tomoe-san and Hojo-san, and Rosemary Taylor will be speaking to tell about the sewing, the particular sewing heritage of Tomoe-san. And then we will open it up, and if anyone here would like to briefly share a memory or an appreciation of Tomoe-san, there will be time for that. When that is completed, there'll be a brief transition. Well, basically, we'll have a formal ending for the doshi to leave. And then there'll be a very brief time while we get ready for the reception and there'll be food and chairs outside. You can come in, you can bring things in as well, but the food, etc., will be outside. And then there'll be plenty of time for that. This is a wonderful opportunity for many of us to see people we may not have seen for a long time, and we don't have any idea how many more chances we'll get. So, and if you're a newer person, this is a chance for you to learn more about your heritage as a Zen student here and as a human being. So thank you very much, and we'll proceed now.
which removes all suffering and is full when its flower opens and petals fall in peace. The seeds of good action continue to replant themselves. The coming and going of life and death is like the changing of the seasons, summer and winter. It is like a bolt of lightning striking in the empty sky, like the great waves disappearing into the vast ocean. We bow with homage and appreciation, and wholeheartedly continue our own lives for the benefit of all beings.
Please have a seat.
Help me with that. Just if you took my
Well, it's so good to see everyone here. And also out there in the hallway.
Yeah, there's, is that better? Okay.
And all you folks downstairs, I can see you barely. And also, all you folks in Japan, hello. That they're tuned in as well. So, and it's really great to see everybody and young, old frying friends. So, first of all, I feel like I'm speaking for all of us that we would like to extend our heartfelt condolences, Yas, to you and Ejo and your families, and your friends and relatives too. It's, this life and death thing. Many of those temples in Japan have like a wooden sounding board and a wooden hammer. And they're like the old-fashioned doorbell. And you hit it 3 times, and it's like pushing a doorbell to a temple. But on that board, it says, life and death are the great matter. And then it says, impermanence is swift. So Tomoe-san, she lived to be 94. But still, life and death are the great matter, and impermanence is swift. So we have this one life, but that life is constantly arising and disappearing. So who are we, and what are we doing with this one life that we have? So Katagiri Roshi and Tomoe-san, when they moved from San Francisco and came here, they really, planted a seed, so to speak, here in the Midwest. And from that, the people that Katagiri Roshi ordained, the people that his Dharma heirs have ordained, it has spread throughout the Midwest, so. But the person behind that was Tomoe Katagiri. She was the person who was supporting the family, not financially, but taking care of the day-to-day living upstairs in this, Zendo, which was also their home. And she also supported Katagiri with the sewing practice that was handed down for generations of the lay robes called rakusus, and also the priest robes named okesas. So that pattern has a deep teaching, and it stemmed from the Buddha's disciple Ananda, who said, Buddha, there's a lot of folks out there teaching in northern India in 500 BC. He said, there's a lot of folks out there teaching. We need some kind of robe that kind of symbolizes that, that we're your disciples. So the Buddha said to Ananda, go develop one and bring it back, and let's look at it. So he developed this robe that I'm looking out there at a rakusu, and Armai Okesa here, where that robe is designed with like a rice field that comes from a spring that falls into a top little square. And that square rolls over, it's tucked under, and water from that rice field flows into a lower rice field. And those rice fields flow over to horizontal rice fields. I saw those rice fields in Japan. And that symbol is how all of our life is constantly interwoven and interpenetrated with all beings. But the issue is, do we wear that rakusu? Do we live that symbol? And do we, what is our lives about? So Tomoe-san devoted herself to that, it's called nyoho. Nyoho literally means according to the ancient ways. So she, learned that nyoho manner, from a sewing teacher in Japan who came to San Francisco Zen Center. She learned that method and taught it and taught us how to sew rakusu and okesa. And she had high standards, So I think probably we all went 3 stitches forward and 2 back sometimes. So, and these stitches are really sometimes wabi-sabi, as they say, like all over the place. But she would say, hey, rice field has to go over this way, and then go over this way. So that was a great help to, I think, Hojo-san Katagiri. So in spreading the Dharma and, the robes throughout, Midwest and North America. And also, it didn't stop there. Just one more thing I just want to say with Tomoe-san, how she supported Hojo-san's effort. She sewed zafu, the round cushions, and zabutons. And some of you may remember Tom Sushak, but he and I and Tomoe-san, Tom was the treasurer for that little cottage industry here at the Minnesota Zen Center. And Tom told me one time, he said, we sewed 1,000 zafu and zabutons in 1 year, in the past year. That is a lot of zafu and zabutons that have gone out there someplace, So in all these ways, Tomoe-san was really, we benefited so much from her life, and her life lives in us, we could say, so in many ways. So, and then one other thing I just want to say. One time Katagiri Roshi made a statement that I think really fits for this occasion. He said, if we swim just on the surface, we are tiny. But if we touch the bottom, he says, we are huge. Tomoe Katagiri didn't just swim on the surface. She really touched the bottom, meaning she dealt with life and turned, we say, the Dharma wheel. And this is what, we've inherited from both Tomoe and Katagiri Dainin Roshi. So, just to close, I want to just read the closing verse from Eihei Dogen. That monk Dogen traveled to China in 13th century. And the first thing he wrote when he came back was a document called the Fukan Zazengi. And translated, that Fukan Zazengi means the universal practice of Zazen. So that is the primary spiritual practice, we could say, that we do, which is that upright sitting and getting right here. And, you know, mind has a way of tripping out, thinking about this, thinking about that, you know, getting caught in this and caught in that and grinding on things. But that upright sitting is, can you kind of cool that narrative that runs in your head, straighten your posture, and thumb tips touching, and tongue at the roof of your mouth and teeth touching, and be there, and just be present, and be with who you are. That quality is to sit up in your life, not just on the cushion, but in your everyday life. That's the practice. So that is, I think, what has been transmitted to our neighborhood, so to speak. Let me just read that closing paragraph from this Fukan Zazengi that Zen Master Dogen wrote when he came back to Japan from China. So he says in the Fukan Zazengi, you have gained the pivotal opportunity of human form. Do not use your time in vain. You are maintaining the essential function or working of the Buddha way. And who would take wasteful delight in the spark from the flintstone? That spark is today. It's this moment. It's be alive in where you are today. And also, you know, endless future. But he says, and then he says, besides, I'm almost finished. He said, besides, form and substance are like the dew on the grass. We are form and substance. You know, we, what I call me, is like dew on the grass. It melts off quickly. So he says, form and substance are like the dew on the grass. Destiny like the dart of lightning striking in the empty night. Emptied in an instant, vanished in a flash. So when death comes, you see the final breath, you see the last tear in someone's eye. That's it. You know, life and death is the great matter. Impermanence is swift. So let us live Tomoe's spirit and Katagiri Roshi's teaching. That is the practice. Thank you.
gathered today to remember, honor, and celebrate Tomoe's extraordinary life. I first knew Tomoe-san here at Zen Center in the 1970s and 80s when I was a Zen student with young children at home. Later I knew her as an old friend and through my role as the Katagiri archivist here at Zen Center. Can I hold this glasses? Is everyone hearing me okay? No. You're not. Okay. I mean, should I start over, Dad, or no? Okay, everyone here could more or less hear me. Okay. How about now? Am I right now? No. Thank you, wait. I have to keep talking. I'll have to say something so that it's just...
You know, you have to say something. Yeah, that one's.
Take this out. I've been advised to start from the beginning. And I'm getting the okay that everything's all right here. So because it wasn't mic'd, I'll just start over again and just say greetings to everyone, and we together, Tomoe's family, friends, and our very extended Dharma family. There's a lot of feedback. Is that acceptable right now? Well, we're gathered to remember, to honor, and to celebrate Tomoe's extraordinary life. I first knew her in the 1970s and 80s here at Zen Center when I was a Zen student with young children at home. Later, I knew her as an old friend, and through my role as the Katagiri archivist here at Zen Center. Tomoe was born in Tokyo and grew up there. After graduating from university, she was a teacher and ran a juku, which is like a kind of after-school school for giving extra help to students. She met Dainen Katagiri through a good friend who had a Dharma connection through the Eon Kishigawa lineage to Dainen's good friend, Yokoi Roshi. They married in 1960, and their son, Yasuhiko, was born while they were living in Tokyo. I'm going to refer to Dainen as Hojo-san or Katagiri Roshi because those are the names his Dharma family used. Hojo-san was sent to California by Soto headquarters in 1963, but it wasn't until 2 years later when he was assisting Suzuki Roshi at Sogoji and San Francisco Zen Center that Tomoe and now 4-year-old Yasuhiko were able to join him there. The family settled in San Francisco and son Eijo was born there. Early on, Tomoe made a significant contribution to American Zen by figuring out how to make Japanese-style meditation cushions and garments, and then adapting them to suit the larger size of American practitioners. In 1970, Tomoe began to study Nyo-ho-e, the Zen practice of hand sewing Buddhist ceremonial robes. The smaller rakusu that I'm wearing, and the larger okesa. Tomoe went on to become a revered master and beloved teacher of this very difficult practice. But she had never wanted to sew, even as a child watching her mother make futons. In Japan, she had felt glad to avoid learning Nyo-ho-e. But then, the nun and sewing master Isshin Yoshida Roshi arrived in San Francisco. A plan was hatched for Suzuki Roshi's students to sew their own rakusu, with Yoshida Roshi introducing the skill in the few days left before she returned to Japan. Hojo-san really wanted Tomoe to learn. He said, "Go to Yoshida Roshi with some fabric. You don't need to worry about our babies. I will stay here. Go." And Tomoe's heart sank because she knew that this time she would not be able to avoid it. She thought, "I have bad karma because I have to sew." But when she began listening to Yoshida speak, the words penetrated her heart. And then she thought, "I have good karma because I met this teacher." When Tomoe told me this story, it touched my heart and has never left. It reminds me that every moment contains immense potential, and we can never really know or judge what's going to happen. Tomoe let go and jumped in, and her life suddenly went in a new direction. Looking back, Tomoe believed that her lack of previous experience helped her to learn sewing because her mind was open and she could absorb Yoshida's teaching with no obstructions. 10 years later, Tomoe sewed her own okesa, astonishingly in just 1 week, because Hojo-san took over household duties to give her time. She and Eijo traveled to Yoshida's temple in Japan for a ceremony that signified Tomoe's status as a lay master of Nyohoe. While others greatly admired her skill, Tomoe never felt that she was good at sewing. But through facing its difficulties and humbly accepting its challenges, she formed a deep devotion to sewing Buddha's robes. And that devotion shined the light of spiritual practice on everyone. Some of that light is captured in her 1986 book, Study of the Okesa, a widely used guide to the history, meaning, and techniques of Zen sewing. The Katagiri family lived briefly in Carmel, south of San Francisco, and had a small zendo there. Then, in late 1972, they moved to Minneapolis, where Katagiri Roshi founded the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, and Tomoe was there as his capable and energetic partner. Zen Buddhism was a strange and somewhat mysterious newcomer to the Midwest. But Tomoe's kindness and cheerful good humor helped people to feel at home in Zen. And her warm-hearted, engaged presence helped to foster a spirit of community among the gathering students. She didn't teach in a formal way, but many of us saw her as our Dharma mother and a role model for practicing Zen in everyday life. She preferred to stay behind the scenes, but when there were things to be done, she was a strong, resourceful, and quick-thinking leader. Many of my Zen Center work periods were spent in the basement sewing room, amid bags of kapok stuffing, as Tomoe patiently and exactingly taught us to make meditation cushions and mats. Under her watchful eye, we made our rakusu and carrying cases, and priests-to-be made their okesa and bowing cloths. We sewed practice clothing and items used in the oryoki eating ritual. In 1989, Tomoe handed me a very large bolt of red fabric and told me to use it all to make the massive red curtain that enclosed the zendo for the first Dharma transmission ceremony. Beyond sewing, Tomoe-san was involved in many aspects of Zen Center life, such as directing the arrangements and coaching us on protocol when Zen Center received prominent visitors from Japan and elsewhere. Tomoe was also a skillful artist of ikebana flower arranging and Japanese tea ceremony. She loved gardening and appreciated fine art, especially the bold woodblock work of the 20th century artist Shiko Munakata. Working part-time as a Japanese instructor at Berlitz Language School, Tomoe helped support her family financially while managing their upstairs apartment at Zen Center and taking care of her husband and sons. When Hojo-san struggled with cancer, she managed the myriad details of his health care and support system. After Hojo-san died in 1990, she lived in her own home in Minneapolis. A band of Dharma students happily provided her with driving and other assistance. There she received many traveling monks and Dharma teachers with open-hearted hospitality. She continued to teach sewing at various Zen centers and to train her 3 successors until retiring from sewing when she was 81 years old. In her later years, Yasuhiko and his wife Christy opened their home to her. She lived there in safety and love, delighted by her growing family, including grandchildren and great-grandsons. She continued to attend events at Hokioji and Romanji, to garden and enjoy time with her many friends, and of course, the family dog and 3 cats. She was 94 years old when she died peacefully at home, surrounded by her family. So today, with deepest gratitude and affection, we honor and celebrate the life of a woman of great wisdom and great compassion. Tomoe-san understood self to include everything, and she did her utmost to love and care for all beings. So from all of us, dearest Tomoe-san, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for coming here and celebrating. I wasn't planning to say anything today, but a couple of weeks ago, Susan Hegler asked my wife if I would be interested in saying a few words. So here I am. I've been thinking about what I would say here the last couple of weeks. I wasn't very organized. I wrote down a few notes just so I won't get lost. Certainly not as organized as you. But if this sounds a little disorganized and I start crying like a little baby, I will not apologize. I will blame Susan. My father, which I think most everybody here knows about, passed away over 30 years ago. It's been a long time. But to this day, it never ceases to amaze me that when I introduce myself to someone for the first time, sometimes there's a connection with my last name and his. And they will ask me questions, and inevitably, sometimes they will ask the question, what was it like to be the son of Dainin Katagiri Roshi? And I would always reply with a simple, uninspiring answer, he was my dad. What can I say? And I will imagine that for the next years, it'll be the same for my mother. What was it like to be the son of Tomoe Katagiri? And I would have to say, she was my mom. what can I say? I can stand up here and tell you stories about my mother for days, but I will tell you a couple of stories that come to mind that I hope will shed some light on who she was to my family as a mother. When we came to, one story that I can think of is when we came to Minneapolis, my family and I were having dinner. As usual, my mother had made a traditional Japanese meal. And on that day, she had made some miso soup. But she had put something in it. It looked like hard-boiled eggs, but it wasn't. They were much smaller, and they were perfectly round. I had no idea what it was. But I was 12 years old, so I asked her, "What is that in my soup?" And she just said, "Never mind, just eat it." Being the son that I was, I kept asking and asking, and I saw my mother shoot a look at my father that clearly said, "Please take control of your son." But being the Japanese father and a Buddhist monk to boot, he absolutely said nothing. He just sat there, continued to eat his soup. So I continued to badger her, and it became a game for me. And finally, she said in her calm but stern voice that I'm sure many of you know, said, "Dachou no kintama desu yo. Monku yuwanai de hayaku tabenasai." Which basically translates to, "They're ostrich balls. Quit your complaining and just eat it." Miso soup spewed from my father's mouth into the bowl, all over the table. I sat there half laughing, half aghast at what had just come out of my mother's mouth. To this day, I'm not quite sure what it was. I'm pretty sure it wasn't ostrich balls. My guess is it was quail eggs. But my mother just sat there quietly, didn't say a word, just finished her meal. That was my mother. Another story, years later, my family and I were in Japan. I don't quite remember exactly where we were going, but we were going through a very busy Japanese train station. My father and my mother were walking ahead of me, and I think I was a teenager, maybe, I'm not sure, I don't remember, but I was lagging behind, 5 yards behind. And I noticed a woman with her young son, probably 5 years old, approaching us from the opposite direction. And as I watched, the boy's eyes caught sight of my father. His eyes wide open, jaws dropped open, eyes locked on, stopped, and just looked at him. His mother didn't realize that he had stopped, and she had kept walking. And as my father approached, he just kept looking at her. Sorry. And all of a sudden, in this busy, bustling train station, he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Mother, mother, what is that bulb thing? Mother, I've never seen anything like it." I could see the horror in this poor woman's face. She pretended she didn't hear him, and she just kept walking. My mother stopped, turned around, came back, knelt down next to him. And as I approached, I could hear her explaining to the little boy in her calm, quiet voice that what he was seeing was a Buddhist priest wearing traditional robes and he actually shaved his head on purpose. The boy listened intently, and by that time, the mother had rushed back, apologizing profusely for her horrific son's behavior. My mother stood up, she looked at her and smiled and said it was her pleasure to explain to her son who he had just seen. She put her hand on his head and bowed a little bit and started walking back to my father to catch up. That was my mother. When she moved in with us, I kind of knew that maybe dementia was in her near future. And she knew it, and we were both concerned. I had read about people who become mean, confused, scared, sometimes even abusive. I watched a woman have a temper tantrum in the middle of Target because her daughter didn't buy her something. And I was terrified that that would be my mother. But she never did. She remained calm, polite, kind, till the very end. And that was my mother. It's been my honor to have been with my father and my mother when they both passed. And I have to say that it is the most personal, emotional, intimate moment in my life. She died on May 30th, on a Saturday, just before 6 p.m. My brother and myself, her grandchildren, 2 great-grandsons, and even our dog, Punko, the Shiba Inu, were all by her when she passed. She passed in peace and quiet, with dignity and grace. It was a very sad day, but at the same time, it was a very good day. In closing, I'd just like to say that if it wasn't for my wife, I think it would have been very difficult for my family to get through this. And I love you very much. I'd like to thank my family and my friends who for the last several years had to listen to me complain, to vent, to give me a shoulder to cry on occasion, and help me laugh when I needed to. It brought a little normalcy to my life. And to everyone that helped my family care for her, who came to visit, to talk to her, to sing to her, to listen to her, to make her smile, and to make her laugh, just to keep that spark in her heart alive just a little bit longer. And of course, to the Zen Center and the entire Zen Center community for everything that you have done for my family, my father and my mother. At this point, I think my mother would be standing right here saying, "Life goes on." And I would have to agree with her. And that is my mother.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rosemary. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. My name is Rosemary. I'm one of the 3 people who Tomoe taught to be sewing teachers. It's me and Kyoku, who's here somewhere, right there, and also Karen Wyken, who's in Wisconsin and couldn't be here today. One of the great blessings of my life was meeting Tomoe Katagiri. And the main reason that I became a sewing teacher was that I could hang out with her. I don't think I ever admitted that in front of people before. So I was her sewing apprentice. I was trying to figure this out. It was 10 years or 15 years or a lifetime, I don't know what, long time anyway. And so I got to spend a lot of time with her, which was wonderful. And reflecting on her, one thing that just kept coming back up for me was that I never heard her say an unkind word about another person. And I was trying then to think if I knew anybody else. I'm looking around the room now. She was just kind all the time. Never heard her say anything bad. One time, the one time, somebody did something that was just completely out of line, and later she told me, we must have compassion for them. We must have compassion for them. And speaking of compassion, she had this cat. I see some of you met Eggie. She had this cat named Eggie. And Eggie was just the cattiest cat I ever met in my life. And nobody loved Eggie except Tomoe-san. And she loved that cat. And although one time I did see her, she had a pot, the lid to a pot, and Eggie was doing something, and she's like holding this in front of her so that Eggie can't get to her. But anyway, so Eggie was, I knew I was going to lose my mind up here. All I wrote down was Eggie, cat hissing story. I could tell a million stories about a cat hissing, but so I really did just completely forget it. Maybe it'll come back to me. I had an Eggie cat hissing story and also one about Raksu sewing. So I spent a lot of time with her with students. And there was one person, well, there were a lot of people who had never sewn before, had no idea, you know. And some of them got to be really good at it, and some of them got to stay right where they were. And there was one, it was a Raksu, and it was the craziest Raksu I've ever seen. And he had taken out the stitch so many times that it was fraying, you know. So we called Tomoe over and, you know, to look at it and tell us what to do. And she picked it up and she went, oh. Anybody here ever sew a Raksu with her and hear her say, oh? And she looked, she didn't know what, and finally she looked up and she said, you have made your best effort. And if you practice diligently, with time, these stitches will straighten out. And she tells him this. And then she turned around and walked off, and I ran after her, and I said, did you mean that literally? Did you mean that figuratively? And those of you who know Tomoe best know exactly what she said. Nothing. Nothing. She just let it go. And I don't know how much later it was, but it was 4 or 5 or 6 years or something. I ran into him. He had on his Raksu, and by God, I don't know what his karma was, but those stitches had straightened out. I have no explanation for it. I don't think anybody helped him afterwards. But there you have it. Yeah. So, Eggy hissing. So we were at her house one time, and at the end of sewing, we would go into her little altar room, and we'd all do 3 bows at the end. And one time I was there with a couple other people, and Tomoe led us in. So Tomoe went into the room, and the others of us had to get by Eggy, who was sitting on the counter in the kitchen. And I mean, you know how small that kitchen was, and we're all like this, you know. And Eggy just, you know. See, I just lost my mind again. So Eggy is there, and we kind of edged around Eggy. I never found out if Eggy was a boy or a girl. I never know what pronouns. So Eggy was a they. So anyway, we got around Eggy, and we went into the altar room, and we, oh, I know, after Eggy let us by, somebody said, wouldn't it be great if whenever we didn't like somebody, we could just hiss at them like that? Wouldn't it be great, you know? And so we're kind of laughing, and then we noticed that Tomoe was already in there, and she was waiting for us, like this. She was waiting for us. And we went in there, and we're all kind of like, oh, we're sort of embarrassed because we've been goofing off. And we walked in, and she went, and that was all she said. So anyway, Kyoku also has a story to tell you about Tomoe-san. Yeah?
Well, I'm going to keep it very short. One of the things that, the 8 million things that struck my heart was one day the two of us were driving to Clouds and Water, and we were on the highway. I was driving, and I was talking, and I had no recollection of what I was talking about, but I'm really good at going on without necessarily looking like I know what I'm talking about. And I kind of got to a little bit of a pause, and all of a sudden Tomoe-san said, everything is tiny. And I don't know what place I was in, but I almost had an accident because it struck something so totally right on. And then she just settled back in the car, and we kept going. But that was, well, we've all heard, and those of us who have had a chance to interact with her know that you can't not know Tomoe-san. And one of the things I feel most fortunate about was fairly late in her life, and you know, medium late in my life. One day I was at her house and we were having tea together, and she said, have you ever been to the National Park, Yellowstone? And I said, no. And she looked at me and she said, let's go. And we did. And it was just a rock and roll kind of a visit. It was such a it was such a great adventure, and I was so glad that I was available and that she had us.
She was the best travel companion, yes, ever. So who's next? Who's up? I was with her the first time she ever saw a shooting star. We were driving in Clouds and Water, and we were getting off the highway.
was just so wonderful. She was just, I mean, you can just imagine her. And she said, "You want to see?" And I thought, I've been blessed. I've been blessed.
So I'd just like to ask if you have ever been instructed by Tomoe-san in sewing, would you stand up? And if you have done any sewing by anyone who has been instructed by Tomoe-san, would you stand up? Okay. So this is just a tangible example of Tomoe-san's life energy flowing through us. Thank you. So at this time, if anyone here present upstairs here would like to say something, a little brief, but please do so. We can try standing, but you'll need to speak loudly. It would be better if you came up here and used a mic, but we can see if it works to stand if you want to try that. What I would say is stand up if you'd like, and I'll, if 8 people stand up, I'll call on someone, okay? Teijo-san, Teijo Munich.
I'll try and make it brief. I came across a video the other day of Tomoe-san when she was visiting Great Tree at my temple in North Carolina. And I thought, oh, this is a nice video. And she had her glasses on, and she pulled her glasses off, and her whole eyes were all black, and she had bruises all over her head because when she had first come that time, she fell and hit her head, and right here, and went to the hospital, checked her out and everything. But in this video, she's saying, "Look, I'm getting better." Pulled on her glasses, and it was just, everything was black and blue. I have one more story to tell. She wanted me to go to Hawaii with her a couple years after Roshi died. And she just bugged me. I said, "I don't have any money." She said, "I've got frequent flyer miles. I want to go to Hawaii. Please come on." So I'm like, okay, I have never been to Hawaii. And I thought, why would she? I know she's been to Hawaii before, Roshi and everything. So I said, maybe when we're there, we can visit this temple. She said, "No, I want to go to Hawaii and not visit any temples."
Judith Regier.
I wasn't going to speak, so here I am. And I'm filled with my love for Tomoe, as many people are. I have one little story. I had to name in Japanese a lot of people because I did jukai. So maybe over 100 names, I would say. And every time I would go to Tomoe's house, and she would spend hours with me naming people in Japanese. And one of the last times I went, I decided, and I was so tired of being a teacher at that point, and I had to name 17 people or something like that. So I collected the lists of names from San Francisco Zen Center, from MZMC, from Katagiri Roshi. So I came in with a list of names, and I said, "Tomoe, this will be so easy. We'll just look at the names and name people." So I started doing that in a kind of my energy, let's get this done and rough and ready. And I could see out of the corner of my eye, Tomoe, when she doesn't like something, like her lips tighten up, and it was a tiny little shake of her head. And by then, I knew Tomoe, so I said, "Okay, Tomoe, what's the matter?" and she said to me, Yakrin, we're naming baby Buddhas. You can't do that, like take that name and put it on that. You have to think about the person. You have to feel the person and then get the images of the person and put them together. And that slowed down the process like tenfold, but that was a big teaching for me. You're naming baby Buddhas. You don't take the short way.
Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Simorka. I met Tomoe when I was very young.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Oh, I'm Simorka. I met Tomoe at Tassajara Zen Center a long time ago. And my story is a story of tenacity and bribery. Tomoe, as you know, has 2 boys. She didn't have any girls, so she set her sights on me very early. And she would always try to brush my hair, and she just, wanted to get her hands on me. And I resisted for a very long time. But because she's so tenacious, she started to bribe me with Japanese candies. And so eventually I would come over and she would brush my hair and do whatever she wanted to my hair, and she'd feed me candy. Eventually she paid me to teach you how to read. Asia, do you remember that? And she would bribe me with more candy, maybe even a little money. But after a while I really enjoyed my time with her, and the special attention that she paid to me. It was a really wonderful relationship, and yeah, she just made me feel very special. It was just a wonderful time that I had with her.
Yeah.
This was in the kitchen at MZMC here. I took over the kitchen because no one else was doing anything about it, and it's not like I knew what I was doing. But all of a sudden I was cooking for sashimi, and especially Saturdays. So one time we had a surplus of brown rice, and somehow Tomoe-san from upstairs found out there was a surplus of brown rice. So she was going to come down and teach me how to make nori rolls. So she pulled out these 2 yellow plastic pieces out of one of the drawers that I never knew what those were for. And she proceeded to prepare the rice and take the nori, flip it over the flame of the old stove. And then this yellow device was for rolling it up. And then she told me, cut it into 5 pieces. Now during sashimi back then, my mind would do weird things. It would think when it wasn't supposed to be thinking, and it couldn't think when it was not supposed to. So one of my strategies under these conditions is, well, just do something and we'll figure it out from there. So I cut it in half. And she turned and gave me a look that only a mother could do. That's my story.
Kelly, what's your last name?
Casey.
Casey, Kelly Casey.
Hey. All the time right here? Yes, thank you. Hey, Joan, so sorry. I miss you too. I was working at Best Buy when I was sewing for my ordination, and I would go over there and she'd go, "You know computers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so I do." "Oh, can you help me with your email?" And I'm like, "My email and your email?" "No, I want to send you an email." I said, "Okay." So I was working on it and all this stuff, and she accidentally hit delete. She was, "Oh." I said, "What happened?" She goes, "Impermanent." She deleted it. And so I have a bunch of funny stories about her like that. Like she wanted to show me her riris, meaning her lilies in the yard. she was so kind to me. I have the same birthday as your father, and she would always remember my birthday. And one time she had an aquarium with these 3 tetras, and she couldn't keep them alive. And they kept coming over there with replacements. And she's like, what happened? It was not doing well. And so then she'd go to the bathroom, and I'd replace them with another one, so I brought it back. I was going to take them all because we were sick. And she goes, what happened? I go, happy rebirth. She goes, oh! She's so funny. So then one time on my birthday, I don't know why I saw her. Anyway, she goes, happy rebirth. So happy rebirth to my son.
Yes, Eric Storley.
Hi. Good to see Hassan, Joe, it's been a long time. These 2 boys and Tomoe helped me really annoy Hojo-san, Roshi, because I proposed when you were still at the Southeast Zendo that I help you build an aquarium. I don't know if you remember that. That was a long time ago. But it had to go on a shelf that had Roshi's books. And it was a small apartment. There seemed to be no other place for it. So Tomoe, and it was clear that Roshi wanted nothing to do with this aquarium taking over a bookshelf that he had important books in it. So Tomoe made sure that the project went forward, and we did it. So I'm honored by helping create family trouble in the Katagiri family.
Thank you, Eric.
This is Ben Connolly.
So, something like 10 or 15 years ago, I interviewed Tomoe-san and many other people for an article about her for a magazine, and the stories that people told were so inspiring. I have I have my own well, but what I'm remembering right now is when I was sitting down with her to do the interviews, she kept telling stories about Ajo and Yas. And I did not record them very much because I'm writing about the sailing tradition. But I just want to say, when she had the time and the opportunity to talk about her life, she spent so much energy and so much care in recalling her relationship to you and who you were. So I'm so glad.
Your own Susan Hagler.
Go ahead.
So I have 3 stories. I'll tell them quick. So when I was in 1984, when I was about 24, 25 years old, I was going to go to Tasahara and spend 10 months. And kind of money, kind of have. But right before I was going, I met this guy named Dwayne. And I decided to come back after the summer. And it was the year that Katagiri Roshi was being the interim abbot at San Francisco. Somebody was behaving poorly. And so the whole Katagiri family came down to Tasahara. And so, and Yas and Ajo was a teenager, and I told them the story a few weeks ago. But Ajo was doing break dancing on the bridge in Tasahara. It was amazing. So, but anyway, I went in to go see Hojo-san, and he said, and I said, I think I'm going to go back early. And I wanted to go back to Hokyoji, but there's green rolling hills and not dry, narrow valley. So he said, do what you want. And I came out, and Tomoe-san says, I think you should stay. I didn't. One of those times sewing my black ocasa, and I was at the last stitch of my black ocasa when my son's basement sewing, and I looked at her and I said, "Is there something I should say for the last stitch of my ocasa?" And she looked at me and she said, "The last stitch is the same as the first." And I went to visit her. I went to visit her on the Thursday before she died, and to see one of those things I said, I went to the last Susan Nelson, Akio and I went to go visit Tomoe a year ago, and we were having tea at the table, and she was mostly just speaking Japanese at that point. You know, very little English. And out of the blue, Tomoe-san said, "I'm so lucky to have such good people." In English.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to tell a story. I don't think it's very interesting, but it's the first time I met Tomoe-san, and I remember it really clearly. Briefly, I was born in Iowa. I went to school in Minneapolis, Augsburg, for a couple of years. Went okay, but didn't really like it. Moved back to Iowa, went to school there, and then I read this thing on Zen, and I got really interested. I'm going to do Zen. But there wasn't any place to do Zen. And so I had to go to San Francisco. So I went to San Francisco, and I tried to do Zen there. It didn't work out very well. But I found out that Katagiri, this person named Katagiri, I don't know who Katagiri is, but anyway, he moved to Minneapolis. I thought, oh, I don't really like San Francisco that well, but I know about Minneapolis. I can get along okay in Minneapolis. Okay, I'm going to meet this guy Katagiri now, study Zen with Katagiri. So I'm back in Iowa, and I'm going to go to the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center in Minneapolis, southeast Minneapolis. I'd been there for about 6 months, and I had to make these arrangements to study Zen, to stay above the Zen Center, because the Zen Center was downstairs and the Zendo was upstairs. I needed a place to sleep. So I was making arrangements, but I didn't quite know how the arrangements, if they were really solid or not, because I was getting I think people know I'm going to come there and I'm going to spend 3 nights looking for a room, and then I'm going to leave. So just to be clear, the boundaries. So anyway, I go to the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, and I knock on the door. I'm ready to meet Katagiri, this thing called Katagiri. I didn't know what Katagiri was, but I was going to meet this thing called Katagiri. But the door opened up, and then there's this little creature. It's Tomoe-san. Now this Tomoe, she had a little kid in her arms. Same time, she's kind of peeking out my door. So I'm looking at her, and then there's this other little kid running up. But anyway, so I say, okay, I'm at the Zen Center now, and what do I do now in my Zen pursuit of things? So anyway, I tell Tomoe-san, I'm going to go upstairs and sleep for 3 nights. She's looking out behind her. And then I'll stay 3 nights, and then I leave. And she's going, I said, okay, you understand? And so, okay, I do my thing. I go up, I stay 3 nights, I find my room, and then I leave. That's it. That sounds very interesting. Well, it wasn't very interesting to me either. So then I 30 years later now, and then, for 7 years I didn't really see Tomoe-san. She was always upstairs doing business, and or downstairs. There it was downstairs, and here it was upstairs. So anyway, she was either upstairs or downstairs. But then 30 years later, I'm one of those people going through Tomoe-san's house, those traveling monks, that was mentioned earlier. And so I'm staying there, and we're having breakfast together. And she says to me, "Do you remember when you first came to Zen Center?" I said, yeah. "Do you remember you said you were going to stay 3 nights?" And I said, yeah, I remember that. "And do you remember that you said you were going to go on the 3rd night, after the 3rd night?" I said, yeah, I remember that. "You did." That's it.
I want to clap.
Tim Burkett. So I met Tomoe when she first came to this country, and it must have been late 1965 in San Francisco. Katagiri Roshi had come to be Suzuki's assistant. He actually moved from LA to be Suzuki's assistant, and I had known him a little bit, but had not really met his wife because she was in Japan. But my wife and I got married in spring of 1966, and I invited Suzuki to my wedding, and he sent Katagiri a tip. And not only did he send Katagiri, he sent Tomoe. Or maybe she just accompanied them. And she had a beautiful flower kimono on. And my wife, Linda, this was a very simple Unitarian wedding. Just a branch instead of an altar. And we were dressed down, although Linda had made her own wedding dress, but it was very simple. So after the wedding, I was delighted that Tomoe was there. And Linda was too, but she was a little shocked, I think. And so afterwards, we had the 2 receiving lines, one for Linda and me, and the other for Tomoe. I don't think Tomoe spoke English to speak of then. It didn't matter because she radiated. She just radiated, and she had not cut her hair yet, so she had her hair up high. So that was beautiful. That was 1966. And then about 7 or 8 years later, when I was living in northern Minnesota with my wife and 2 little kids, and I would come down to Sessions here periodically, I got to know Tomoe a little bit, and because I'd stay overnight, and she said to me once, "Tell me what," her English was very broken, "you're living in the wilds." I said, "Yes, we're living in the wilds." I said, "We have bears and once in a while a wolf," although we didn't have. And she said, "Oh, I would like to bring my boys up to your farm so they saw the wilds." And I said, "Well, do it." She said, "Well, I have to convince Oger-san." So then she came back to me and said, "Well, I talked to him. He didn't seem that enthusiastic." And she said, "Can you tell me a story that would get him to be enthusiastic?" I told him, "Well, tell him we sit in Zazen 2 hours a day," which was true. We were sitting 2 hours a day. And she told him, and then he said, "I want to come." So so they all came up, and I think they stayed in our farmhouse with us. And the boys seemed to, I don't know how old you guys were, but you seemed to have a good time, and you wanted to come back. So Oja-san drove them all the way back to do a camping trip, and then left them on our land.
In a tent. Why would he do that?
I think they had a tent. And they stayed, and they went fishing, Yoshihiko all these years later working at REI. Which she just reminded me of. So,
I just wanted to say that on that trip,
yeah,
your son, Jed,
yeah.
said, hey, let's go in the field.
Uh-huh.
So he took us into the field.
Oh, yeah?
And at the time you had goats. And
Yeah.
Goats
Yeah.
ate
Yeah.
the field, which was covered in poison ivy. But apparently, your family was immune because you drank the milk.
Oh,
I guess.
Oh, but you guys got poison ivy.
And I remember you scolding Jen for trying to talk me into going.
Was that the first trip or the second?
That was the second trip of the
Oh,
10th.
that's when we never came back. And the other thing I wanted to say was that my son Jed said Katagiri Roshi wore his traveling clothes. He wore black traveling clothes, and after you guys left the first time, he said, "Where did that policeman go?" I said, "I like that policeman." I said, "Well, I'll invite him up again." But you guys came up, and then the policeman brought you up. And my son Jed was very happy to got to see the policeman. That's what I want to say.
Yes, Angel, Katagiri.
It's incredible to see you. This family of holding you. Shut up! Everybody together again is very nice. To see how my mother has affected you all. It's nice to see you. Thank you very much for everything. She is my mother. I'll just say, she has taught so many lessons to everyone. Me as her son, the things that I remember was in this building, she would cook and I would always be running around, and she said, go upstairs to the third floor and over the porch. And so I would hang over the porch and she would write giant Japanese characters on the second floor porch. And then she would say, which one is this one? And I didn't know, and she would teach me. And I don't know how long that went, but it was fun. I had a ton of fun. It never really taught me Japanese until much later, and when she and I just traveled to Japan, and that kind of helped me to learn how to read Japanese, going through the train stations. And I would read the English, the romaji, and then I could read the hiragana, and slowly that's how I learned, but it was definitely because of my mother. And another lasting thing is her cooking, and I would just hang out in the kitchen all the time, and she would let me cook every once in a while, or just, I don't even think she was teaching me. I think I was probably in her way, but I absorbed that to the point now I love cooking and I enjoy cooking. When I would come visit her when she was, in the last 6 years, I would cook ramen. I really started getting interested in ramen, and made fresh ramen noodles, made the broth from scratch, all vegan, and I'd give it to my mother, and I would make it all fancy and pretty, and I would say, what do you think? And she would just go, yeah. So thank you very much for all the holding you, and Tim Burkett and Eric's story, oh my God, I haven't seen you in ages. And so, but I remember going to your land so strongly because one of the things was you fed us goat milk, and it was horrible. I'm like, oh man, this milk is awful. And later on she said, yeah, that goat milk is horrible. Yes.
like to say something?
Did anybody else sing with Tomoe?
Did anyone else sing to my sound?
Oh, really? So Catherine and I and Tomoe would sing. We were a singing group. And she even went with us and we sang at my nursing home. And a couple of the songs that Tomoe loved was a song by Rocky, which was Thanks a Lot. And so Catherine and I and Tomoe would sing that every time. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the stars in the sky. Thanks a lot. Thanks, blah, blah. And she also always wanted us to sing Sakura. And we would sing Sakura with her. But we sang 20, 30 different kind of songs. Yeah. Oh, we were so good. And Tomoe loved music. She really loved music. And one of the things we always did whenever we visited, because Tomoe and I would drive to Wisconsin, to Lake Tomahawk, to Catherine's cabin, and we would stay the weekend. And of course we had to sing, we had to hike, and Tomoe had to cook, and we would go early in the summer, which in Wisconsin, up north of Wisconsin, was still spring. So we could discover all the spring wildflowers that are already blooming in Minneapolis. They were starting to bloom there. And Tomoe really loved that. So many wonderful memories of traveling with Tomoe, of singing with Tomoe, of cooking with Tomoe, and thank Tomoe for teaching me how to make cooking. I'm also incredibly grateful to the Katagiri family for their unbelievably boisterous, hilarious, loving home that Tomoe lived in for the last 7 years. It was often a madhouse with Kaito there for daycare and Dyson there joking with his dad and cutting up. It was so alive. And Tomoe got to have that for her last 7 years. And I'll always be grateful for that. That's what she got. Very, very grateful.
This is June.
I'm one of the grandsons of Obachan, and just going off of that Sakura song, she would always, like every time when we would sing that, it was, and I remember it was my sophomore year of high school, and I was in chamber choir, and the project was to sing a song in another language, and I really wanted to do Japanese, and I picked Sakura, and I did it at the talent show, and when I told my dad that he said, you should have recorded it for Obachan, and now it just, that's all I remember, and knowing that, it was like, I wish we had the chance to actually record it for her, but that's what I want to say. I'm going to sing on it now.
Yes, and will you tell us who you are?
Yes, I'm Bridget. I'm a relative of Christy, and I have a funny story about Tomoe. I didn't know her entire life, but when I did meet her, she was always so full of energy, and we were at Christy's daughter Elizabeth's graduation party, and in the backyard, we looked out the window, we were preparing food in the kitchen, and Tomoe was on the monkey bars, hanging upside down. She was maybe in her 80s at this point. So there's a lesson for all of us. We hope to find our equivalent to the monkey bars in their 80s. And I remember Christy looking out the window saying to Elizabeth, go get your grandmother off the monkey bars.
Audrey Larson, I'm Christy's mother, and he's my son-in-law, great son-in-law. But probably when Mom was late 70s, we would travel to Florida together. And she would come with me and stay with me for a few days, and we just enjoyed the time. But I was also working contract at that time. So I would work, and then Mother would do the thing, and two things I remember about that is we would always go to this grocery store that had all these green vegetables. And I didn't know what they were, and I didn't know what we were going to eat. But we always came home and she made the most delicious dinner. And I still don't know what we were eating, but she was a great cook. The other thing I remember about our trips is she would say, well, I'm just going to go for a walk. And she loved walking in the water and stuff. And one day I could watch her with our phones because I didn't know where she was going to go. And so I would see her walking along the path, and she would stop every once in a while and she'd look at flowers because she was a great flower person. And I remember one day, it was taking her a long time, and I thought, I wonder where she's at. Well, every once in a while, I would walk with her, she'd go into these little ponds. And there's alligators in those little ponds in Florida. And I thought, I could just see Tomoe. Just see if she could see an alligator. And I was going, okay, I'm giving her 5 more minutes. If I don't see her, I'm going to go get her. I know where she's at. Didn't see her, so I got my shoes on, took off. Here she comes walking back, she's all happy. I said, what were you doing so long? I was worried about you. Well, I was sitting and talking to this lady at the pond, and we were both looking for alligators. So I'm out of traveling with her and just enjoy traveling with her.
Catherine, do you know all the words to the Rocky song?
We were singing it on the way over. My way of singing it is pull it up.
Do you have the lyrics? Do you have your phone? Can you do that? No? Okay. Okay. Well, right, I'd like to say something to Tomoe-san.
Tomoe-sama. Ima owarikashita. Your great life in this world as an embodied being has come to an end. But your true life continues in all of us and in innumerable other forms. To hear that, in line with my experience too, that you are someone who never said an unkind word, says a great, great, great deal about your practice as a human being, as a true human being who understands what it means to be a true human being and practices it. Tomoe-san, it's been a great privilege for me to know you and to be part of your life, to have you part of my life. May we go forward together, hand in hand, forever. Arigatou gozaimashita. Okay, so let's end now, and we'll have a reception. There'll be a little time carrying food out and things, but please enjoy each other. And could I just say, many people, particularly older people, know Yas and Ajo, but Yas, would you introduce your family?
Just my immediate family, or?
Well, you'll have to set some limits.
This is my wife, Christy. We've been married now for 15 years. She has a daughter, Elizabeth. She wasn't able to join us here. She's in Philadelphia. My brother, Dijo, the crybaby. This is Emmy, one of my brother's children. This is Ellen, his ex-wife, mother of 2 children. This is Jun-hyun, son. And this is my father-in-law, Wayne, mother-in-law, Audrey, my son, Dyson, and 2 horrible grandchildren. I'm doing something. Wife, Holly. This is Dyson's mother, my ex-wife, Allison. This is her mother, Dyson's grandmother, Emily. And then everybody else here is this extended family of my wife, Christy, which my mother cherished very much. He never had family here in Japan, so this was her family. And she always was amazed at how everybody got together, spent time, laughed, and she thought it was a very wonderful thing. And I'm very fortunate to have her. And this is Cindy. She's not technically a family member. She is one of my good friends when we were in Minneapolis, when we first moved in, Brother Aaron. Thank you.
Just one more thing. On behalf of the whole community of people who love Tomoe San, I want to thank the Katagiri family so much for taking care of her so well in her later years. That was truly a demonstration of love, and I think your father would be not a bit surprised that he would not assent. He would be very happy with his sons and the rest of the Katagiri family. So thank you. Okay, so we'll have an ending now. Please rise. We'll have our ending and then go on from there.